Hey guys, this video is going to be all about absorption and reflection. So you're probably wondering, okay, what does this have to do with photosynthesis? Well, because photosynthesis is driven by light, it's important that we understand that light that we see makes up what is called the visible spectrum. So you can see to the right, I have this very famous album cover actually from Pink Floyd's Dark Side of the Moon, but it's very relevant to this particular concept in that you can see a stream of white light going into this prism. And what the prism does is it essentially shows us what is hidden in this white light, because when you look at white light normally, you're not going to really see or notice that within white light, there is every single color of the rainbow. You've got red, orange, yellow, green, blue, purple, and when you shoot light through a prism, it actually separates the wavelengths out to where now all of a sudden, all of those colors are going to be visible to your eyes. So just know that the whole point of this is white light has a lot going on inside of it that you don't necessarily see, and that when we shine like white light on our plants, for instance, every single beam of white light is going to have, and sunlight has all of these colors within it, which is why when we are outside you can see a variety of colors in the world around us, and that's just all of the colors you see are being reflected off of those objects. So if I wore a red shirt, you would see red reflected off of it, meaning that shirt absorbs all the colors but red. But let's kind of like backtrack for a second and go into how does this actually connect to photosynthesis? Well, inside of our chloroplast, which is our photosynthesis energy organelle, we have thylakoids and stroma, and our thylakoids contain they're kind of like these green stacks, and because they're green, that's a big indicator that they are reflecting green light. So in order to reflect green, that means you must be absorbing all of the other colors of the visible spectrum, or all the other colors of the rainbow. So that is where our light reactions are actually occurring, is inside of the thylakoids. And the thylakoids have something called pigments in them, and pigments are just light absorbing and reflecting structures. There are a lot of different types of pigments. The most common is going to be chlorophyll. However, I don't want you to think that like all pigments are the same, because obviously every time you go to school and you see people wearing different colored clothing, that means that there are so many different types of pigments, meaning that they're all going to absorb and reflect different wavelengths of light. So what you need to be comfortable with is, if I give you a chart or graph, you can tell me, okay, based on what that pigment is absorbing and not absorbing, what's it going to look like, what colors are best for it, and then how is it absorbing certain wavelengths versus others. Chlorophyll is going to like violet and red light, and it's going to really dislike or reflect green light back out, and we can see that on this graph. So here I have, just so you can see that purple has very, very short wavelengths, or a very high frequency. Frequency is just how frequent is it moving up and down in this case, just to keep it simple. And then you got red over here, which is going to prefer it's going to be very long wavelengths. So kind of tying this up here into this chart down here, we can see there are three different pigments. We've got chlorophyll A, chlorophyll B, and carotenoids, which are all going to kind of absorb and reflect different wavelengths of light. Now, you need to be able to read any sort of pigment I might throw at you, whether it's our mainstream plant pigments, which are our chlorophylls and our carotenoids, or maybe something I even make up. And I just have a chart just like this with wavelength of light on the x-axis and the amount of light absorbed on the y-axis. So here, we're just going to focus on chlorophyll A, just to keep it simple. So chlorophyll A is going to really absorb light here, and it's going to absorb light here. So what we're seeing is it's really not absorbing light down here, or the absorbance is really low. So to connect the dots, if a pigment absorbs a color, in this case, it's going to really absorb some blue, some like where blue's transitioning into purple, and also kind of in this red orange where orange is transitioning into a deeper red color. In this case, high absorbance means that that light is being used in the light reactions. It's being used for photosynthesis. So those colors are really useful for photosynthesis. And if you were to just shine blue or a blue purple or just shine red onto a plant that has chlorophyll A, it's probably still going to be able to do photosynthesis because it really absorbs and uses those wavelengths of light. So on the flip side, if high absorbance means that those colors are being used for photosynthesis, or those colors are useful for photosynthesis, low absorbance means that is what's being reflected back out. So it's not being used, so it kind of bounces off of the pigment. In this case, chlorophyll A, that green light is just going to hit it and bounce right back out or bounce off of it. And that is where you're going to have your reflection, or that's what this particular pigment is going to look like to you. If you were to just shine some green light or around 550 wavelength light onto a plant, if that plant's relying on chlorophyll A, or really any of these, chlorophyll A, chlorophyll B, carotenoids, what they have in common is that they do not absorb this light. There is no line here that shows any semblance of absorbing greens, yellows. That's just not going to happen. So if you were to shine green and yellow light onto a plant, it's really not going to be able to do photosynthesis because it's just going to reflect all that light back out, which means it's not using it. However, if you were to shine these more favorable wavelengths of light, the plant would conduct photosynthesis. But one thing that is always true is that white light, which contains all of the colors of the visible light spectrum, is going to be the best for a plant in any situation because plants do absorb multiple wavelengths of light. So just kind of pigeonholing it to receiving one is going to make it not grow as well as if it's receiving all of the light possible. So that is the gist of how to read absorption, how to answer those types of questions. So just be comfortable reading these sort of graphs because it's definitely going to come back up on the test. And this is how the light reactions are kind of powered